You can go first.
Should I go first?
Yeah, because you're only a student.
I know, I'm Stefan Åström. I'm a PhD student at Chalmers University of Technology, and I'm also a research consultant at the Swedish Environmental Research Institute.
I'm Jeff Bielicki. I am an assistant professor at The Ohio State University in the United States. I have a joint appointment in the Department of Civil, Environmental, and Geodetic Engineering and the Glenn College of Public Affairs.
You were a student?
I was a student.
I came down to learn more about one specific model that they have at IIASA.
Okay.
So I was still at the research institute by then.
My first experience is, I flew over from the United States, and I got to the apartment that I was living in, and I was jet lagged and really tired, and there's this big goofy Swedish guy sitting in my room making himself comfortable. And
it was a nice room.
It was a nice room, and I paid for that room.
Yeah, but it was a 2-room apartment, and there was one room that was separate from the others, and there were one room with 2 beds separated by
He likes to rationalize things.
So I took the good room. I was first.
Yeah. And then.
So he kicked me out.
I kicked him out of my room.
That's how keen he was to get to know new people.
You're taking my room.
I'm new at this place.
Yeah.
I must be friendly to people. What are you doing here? Out of my room. That type of approach.
Well, but then you tried to make up.
Yeah.
You felt guilty.
I was trying to come over the hurdle of
you felt guilty for
the rude American guy.
The rude American. You're the one that took my room.
Yeah.
I think friendships and collaborations are another word for networks, and it's either personal or professional network. And
not either. It can be both.
It can be both. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we were doing work in Sweden on integrating air pollution and climate change policies or other technologies and options to reduce emissions. IIASA has this strong model environment there, so I came down here to learn and try to add to that modeling environment. And I've been coming back regularly, and since now we have a fully functional version in Sweden of the model, continuously try to add to the model and try to help and improve. And I got to know the IIASA people, and if that wouldn't have been the case, I think the work I'm doing now would have been possible, and the competence Sweden has now in this modeling wouldn't have been possible. So for Sweden that was important. For Swedish air pollution policy that was important. Because of the YSSP and the gains model stuff that we did, Sweden is one of the countries in Europe that knows that they can understand the gains model results, and the gains model results are very informative and helps the policy process.
So I was a PhD student, and I came here in part because all of my advisors had a connection to IIASA in various ways, unconnected connections. They weren't connected to each other while they were here, and they all said that it was a great experience. And I was working that summer on what are called technological spillovers, and it's basically the notion that you develop knowledge and capacity in some sort of technology over here, and that somehow gets translated into something else somewhere else. So a great example is like semiconductors. The knowledge we have about how to manufacture those informs how we manufacture photovoltaics. So I was working on that, and what it sort of led to, it wasn't necessarily an actionable policy related, direct actionable policy related outcome, although we do know that a characteristic is when you fund research in one domain and develop the knowledge that's more broadly applicable than what the knowledge or the funding was originally for. So there's the notion of a public good, the invest in developing knowledge that's to the good of the public. What it led to for me was a chapter in my PhD dissertation that wasn't the work that I did here, but I used some of the approaches and insights that I learned while I was here and applied that to a different situation. I think the connections are quite important, and IIASA in general was set up originally to bridge the Soviet U.S. Divide and allow a space for people to collaborate and without the gobbledygook of the political differences. And I think part of what that does, and one of the benefits of the YSSP, is that because typically there are roughly 30 or so countries represented here, and you can get over these initial impressions, like when a Swedish person tries to take your room, you actually find out that Swedes are actually, despite being selfish about taking rooms, they actually can be nice people. And so you multiply that by 30 throughout the course of the summer, and you get to there's a little bit of an export of your culture and an import of 29 other cultures. That just makes you a better citizen of the world and more understanding of the differences and the value in those differences.
But I think also for the countries that to know that you can send a national research expert or a PhD student in this case to the institute, it opens up what the institute is. It makes the institute more transparent.
Sure.
So that it develops this identity as independent, right? Fairly objective. I know it's identified as a think tank, but it still is based on solid science, and if you are good from whatever country you are, if you're a IIASA member, you can apply, and if you're accepted, then you get to know the place. So in all the member states, there are people who knows the institute well.
Yeah, and it's not associated with a particular perspective. Like IIASA isn't the Austrian Research Institute,
No.
and therefore somebody from Bolivia might discount it because they don't like Austria for some reason. It really is the international flavor increases the perceived legitimacy of what comes out of here. I mean, for an institution to survive for 45 years or so, based on just doing research, and part of that is by getting contracts to do research and getting funding, and attracting all these people from throughout the world, and having, I have a student in the YSSP, right, one of my PhD students right now, and I wouldn't send her here if I didn't think that it would be a good experience and helpful for her. And so I think, the work that's done here informs decision making and the conversation more broadly in many ways, and it also helps to train the next generation of people who will then inform that conversation.
But then also conversely, your PhD student wouldn't be accepted here if she wasn't good.
True.
So I mean, in that way, that's one way to ensure that you are doing good research. The YSSP program, they want good PhD students to come.
It's not an easy thing to get into, which I think is part of the thing that we, when I see somebody else who says, YSSP, whatever year, so it's a little signal that there's something a little bit better quality to what they do. I think one of the benefits is that it's always addressed grand challenges on the globe, and it's continuing to address those grand challenges, and some of those grand challenges haven't really changed. They just morph a little bit around energy or water, population.
I mean, the YSSP program continuously develops and adapts, if you like, right? Same as the Institute, it follows the questions that are of urgent need to be answered, where we have difficulties knowing how the system works. That's where IIASA digs in, and that's also, the YSSP follows those questions as well. So I think that as long as we have questions that remains to be answered, or that can be formulated into research questions, then yeah. One of the benefits of having been on a YSSP and to have the YSSP alumni network continuously growing is the ease with which you can contact IIASA later on. At least if you've never been here, it can feel like a bit of a obstacle to lift the phone and terrorize a researcher that sits and do something that you're just curious about. But I noticed that being a former YSSPer, lifting up the telephone is a much easier thing because you sort of feel connected to the institute.
And one of the other benefits is that I see a publication by somebody who I knew from the YSSP, and I said, oh yeah, she published this, and then I call her up and I say, great. Or I'm talking to somebody and I say, actually I know somebody who does some similar work, let me put you in touch. And it's sort of it's another way in which the impact propagates. not just by what we're doing, but how we refer to each other, and I get more opportunities because people know me from the YSSP, and I pass those on as well.